guys, we're back. Sorry, I was like, what are we
We
doing?
we are back. Welcome to Corpses and Cocktails.
Where the worst of the worst is spoken about while we get drunk.
It's so much fun.
Mhm.
We're a couple of glasses in. Well, I am at least. So I feel like it's going to be a bit of a fun episode today.
Yeah. I think you're gonna be absolutely fucked by the end, and I'm really, really excited to see that.
Yes, I will be.
Yeah, Erin and I
I'm
have
trying not to be inappropriate.
Erin and I have been talking for like the past hour and just drinking, so that's been fun. But yeah, so she's had quite a few.
It'll be fine, guys. It's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna try and make it like, when you're listening to certain things and like people are really drunk in it and they just aren't fun anymore. I'm not gonna be that person.
I'll let you know when you get to it.
Thank you. You're such a good friend.
I know. That's what I'm here for. I don't know about you, but like I noticed like last week that it became really, really difficult for me to talk, and I was like concentrating on every single word that I read, and I was like, this is getting hard.
I feel like whoever goes last, it's like, all right, I've got to really focus really hard. It can be
Do
really
you want to go
difficult.
first, just in case?
Sure. All right,
Yeah.
well, mine's quite quick, so I don't mind. And
Yeah, no, you can go first because I feel like
Okay.
that might be safer too.
Right, okay, I'll go first. Luckily mine's a pretty quick one, but it is a good one. So I'm just gonna open my notes on my little phone here.
Yeah, you told me not to Google it when I asked, and I was really tempted to Google it, but I've never heard of it.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you listened to me because
I was like, should I do it? And I was like, no, don't do it.
you would.
I am that person.
I
You
know.
know, James and I have started buying each other Christmas presents already because there's 8 paychecks till Christmas because we get paid fortnightly. And and what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to give the presents like to my mum because I'm that person that like I'm like I get a present for someone and I either tell them what it is or I'm like, here, open it, like quick. And everyone hates it, but I'm like, I just want to see your reaction right now. like I made it a thing.
Oh, that's really nice though. It's like you can't hold on to a surprise.
No. So we're like, well, we have to start buying Christmas presents now, but let's just take them to my mother's so that I'm not like, James, open it. Like I have like a couple or too many drinks and I'm like, look what I got you.
Oh, but you can't use it till Christmas.
No.
Well, I'm going to give you my Christmas present early. And my Christmas present is telling you about this horrible break-in. So, I'm going to talk about Jennifer Pan. She's born in Markham, Ontario, Canada, with her younger brother in, I think it was 1986. And her parents were from Vietnam and immigrated to Canada as refugees. So they worked very hard for what they have. They both worked as factory assembling car parts. So very hard workers, and being immigrants and refugees, they didn't really speak that much English, but they again worked just so hard for what they have, and they take a lot of pride in where they are today. So when Jennifer started figure skating when she was 4, and she was expected to go to the Winter Olympics, but at 14, she unfortunately broke her ankle.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, which is really sad. She was also an award-winning pianist. Her older brother was also a very high achiever. He eventually attended a very prestigious university for mechanical engineering. So the family was extremely frugal. However, they got to a point in their life where they could afford certain luxuries. So they both drove luxury vehicles, Mercedes-Benz and a Porsche.
Yep, so they have quite a bit of money.
Yeah, so they had good money. It said that they had $200,000 in their savings account. They lived in quite a nice, upper class neighborhood. So, they were frugal, but they also, did like to spend some of their money as well, just to show that, they had it. So the parents did have quite high expectations for their children. and they did monitor their children quite closely and were a bit controlling. Jennifer got very good grades. She was a straight A student, and she was attending the University of Ontario for pharmacology. So
Hmm.
she also worked part time as a piano tutor, and her parents were incredibly proud of her. So on November 8th, 2010, be the night that ruined their lives. The three figures walked into the penthouse looking for money. Initially, they confront Beak, the wife, in the lounge room, and then they woke up Han and the father. Jennifer heard footsteps that didn't sound like her parents, and when she opened the door to go see what was going on, a gun was pointed in her face, and she was then brought into the lounge room. So they demanded money, and Jennifer was able to hand over $3,000 to the gunmen, money she had saved from doing piano lessons, as well as some money that her mother has saved in cash as well. However, it wasn't enough for them. So Jennifer is taken upstairs and she's bound on the stair frame, hands behind her back on the banister. Anne and Beak were taken to the basement and a blanket was thrown over them. He pleads with the gunman to spare Jennifer's life. She is shot 2 times, once in the back and once in the head, and that headshot fatally killed her. She was 53. Anne was shot as well in the face and in the back. However, he did not die. Jennifer was spared from this horrible attack, and the 3 men left. She calls 911, and you can hear Han screaming in the background for help.
Did you just say
Yes, yes.
leaved?
Did I say left?
I
Left.
think you said leaved.
3 men left. I think because I had leave, I had the 3 men leave. They then left.
And I was like, did I hear this correctly?
I
You
thought
might
I
have been
said the
right.
right
You might have been
word.
right, but I'm sorry.
Okay. So, yep, the men left. There we go. Grammar. Yeah, you can hear on the 911 call that Jennifer made that Han is screaming for help. And this ordeal took 18 minutes and it was just utter and complete terror. And when Han was brought to the hospital, he was put in a coma, and Jennifer spent hours by her father's bed. So Jennifer was obviously interviewed by police as she was the only witness that was able to give them a clear indicator of what the men looked like and what happened that night. So, they just wanted to figure out a timeline of what happened, as well as, she was the only witness that could actually talk and that they had available. So this night was just an utterly horrible night for the family. However, this is when things take a little bit of a turn. So Jennifer's life wasn't as perfect as expected. Her parents were what were described as tiger parents, very controlling. They put a lot of stress onto their children, and they had very, very high expectations. Very high expectations. They did not allow their children to go to dances, to proms, did not allow them to have boyfriends or girlfriends. They couldn't go to friends' houses. They were also driven to their extracurriculum activities and picked up.
Wow.
They had very little time to really do anything that wasn't studying and focusing on their future.
Wow. Okay.
So this was very stressful for Jennifer. Because she wasn't actually as academically inclined as the report card said. She wasn't a straight A student. She was, in fact, a C+ student. And she did excel in music, though. That was the only subject she excelled in. Now, I said that at the start she was a straight A student.
Mm-hmm.
However, she was forging those report cards because she did not want her parents to find out that she was a C grade student. This is when she began to start lying about everything. She actually failed high school, but she lied about that her parents. She didn't actually get any scholarships to university. She lied about passing school, lied from, successfully
Oh my
completing high
god.
school. She forged acceptance letters. She forged just normal letters. And she said that she was attending, Toronto University for pharmacology. She was actually, in fact, eating at a cafe when those classes would happen. And she was living with a secret boyfriend, not on campus,
Ooh.
of 8 years while she was supposed to be attending. So, see where
Wow.
some things start to not add up. Yes,
Juicy.
it's getting very, very interesting. So her family eventually caught on due to the fact that she said that she had work placement in a hospital setting. However, they started to get suspicious because she didn't have one of those cards around her neck. They were able to uncover her big web of lies, and they gave her two options. So you have to either stay in the house, all you do is focus on study, all you do is focus on going to school, and that's it. You're not allowed to see your boyfriend anymore, see no friends, that's it. Or we cut you off and you do not speak to us anymore. We do not support your lifestyle anymore, and you go do whatever you want, but you do not contact you, not
Yeah.
contact us.
That is really harsh.
Um,
Mhm.
so, Jennifer didn't like either of these options that her parents gave to her. However, she did in the end agree to move in with her parents. Um, she was actually still in contact with her boyfriend of 8 years, Wong. Jennifer
Mhm.
told Wong that she wanted to kill her parents. So what they needed was to get $10,000 for the gunmen, and she said that this would be possible once she gets her $500,000 inheritance from her family. So Wong said that he gave Leonard Roy Crawford her number, a Jamaican born, and this person then gave Jennifer a SIM card and an iPhone so that she could easily contact Crawford. Crawford also got in touch with two other men, Eric Sean Carty and David Milvaganam. I said that correctly. So, what started police to question what was going on is that Jennifer was left unharmed. So, you really never leave, a person that has not been blindfolded, unharmed in an event when two other victims have been killed or shot.
Yeah.
So that is when suspicion started, as well as the ability for Jennifer to call 911 because her hands were tied tightly behind banister behind her back, and police, when they got there, had to cut her hands free. So they were very suspicious of that. She
Yeah,
was
that doesn't add
arrested.
up.
Yeah, it's very strange, very strange. So she was arrested on the 22nd of November on her third police interview, where she admitted that she had, in fact, hired killers to only kill her. So all the other killers were also arrested between April and May in 2014, and all the defendants pled not guilty. So during Jennifer's testimony to the police after her parents' murder, as well as what she said on the stand, there just were so many irregularities, as well as the fact that she had contacted Wong more than 100 times 6 hours before the murder. They also found out that because Jennifer was left unharmed, it was very suspicious. Um, Also, the fact that her father, Han, stated a very different tone of events because he wasn't supposed to stay alive. He was supposed to be dead. But
Mhm.
luckily, he did survive. I feel like much to the disdain of Jennifer. It very tough, have gone through that. So all the defendants were found guilty, including Jennifer Pan, and they were sentenced to 25 years with they were all sentenced to a life sentence with 25 years of no parole.
Oh shit.
So, and and requested that the judge that Jennifer not contact any of her family as well as Wong, and the judge approved of the request. So Jennifer is in fact still in jail to this day. Um, so that is the
That that was wild.
pretty, like, I say short, but really intense.
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, there was this whole thing where people were defending her because of how controlling her parents were.
Mhm.
People were also saying, like, but she wanted her parents' money. She could have easily left because she did have a job. Um, However, at the time of the killing, she was 24. So she was old enough to live by
Yeah.
herself. But also, she was still being controlled by her parents at 24.
That's
There must be a lot of manipulation in
yeah.
her life that happened. So you know what? I really have no idea how I feel about the case. I feel sorry for Jennifer, but also I know she needs to pay for the crime she committed. What she
Yeah.
did was not the answer.
Yeah.
You know what? I almost just feel sorry for everyone involved,
Mm.
fortunately. So
Yeah, because like if you have parents that are that controlling, you don't want to be a part of that.
exactly, and I guess she thought that was her only option to still get the money from her family, perhaps. So
It's
yeah,
insane.
crazy. Treat your children nicely, people, or else it could come back to bite you in the ass.
Yes, yes, and don't forget that they are eventually going to put you in a nursing home.
Exactly. Whether it's a nice one or a bad one, that's up to them in
Yeah,
the
so
end.
make sure it's at least towards a good one.
Yeah.
Where did you hear about this?
So I remember listening to it on my favorite murder podcast,
Oh.
and I've recently seen a documentary on it advertised on Reddit
Mhm.
about, and I watched her police interviews. And it was this guy who was kind of talking about what she was doing in her police interviews, and at one point, she was always seemed to be asking for approval with her head, like she'd stop and be like, when that thing where you're like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense what I've just told you?
Yeah.
That would happen a lot, while she was explaining her story. It was really, really interesting. Just the way that the police were able to pick, she committed the crime and not, oh,
Yeah. Wow,
yeah, so
that's interesting.
very
Hmm.
interesting.
So,
Oh, what
so,
is
so.
your case? You said it was a big one.
It is big. It is long. Where is this going? It is a mix of kind of like two cases. It's got two cases involved. If for anyone listening, if you're with Telstra, you can download an app called Binge, and really, really good. It's kind of like Netflix Stan, and it's got like a really big like variety of everything. And so I watched on Binge a documentary called Children of the Snow. So
Ooh.
between 1976 and 1977, the quiet suburbs of Oakland County in Michigan became the stalking ground for a predator who would go by the name of the Oakland County Child Killer.
Child killer.
So I'm going to start with the victims. So Mark Stebbins was last seen on February 15th in 1976 in Ferndale, Michigan. Mark and his mother were at the American Legion Hall where they were having a pool tournament. Mark asked if he could go for a walk home to watch a movie, and his mother agreed. So Mark left the hall at around noon to walk 3/4 of a mile home. Later that day, Ruth called home to check on Mark, but she got no answer. When she got home a little before 9 p.m., she found the house empty. When Mark didn't arrive home by 11 p.m., naturally she was terrified and she called the police to report Mark missing. The Ferndale police released a statement that they haven't had a kidnapping in over 10 years, and that they assumed that he would be out with friends, a runaway, or return home soon. 4 days later, on February 19th, Mark Bodeheimer found Mark Stepping's body.
Oh.
So this is this is the start of something completely brutal. So his body was found in the snow in a parking lot in Oakdale. So Oakdale's a little over 2 hours northeast of Ferndale, so quite a distance away. At first, the businessman thought it was a mannequin in the snow, but looking closer, he noticed it was the corpse of a child.
Oh,
Mark's body had been carefully placed there, curled up as if he was sleeping right near a dumpster. Police said it appeared that he had been deceased for less than 8 hours. They noticed wounds and bruising that led the police to believe he was beaten and tied up. There were two accounts of the cause of death. Some reports say that there were ligature marks around his neck, and then others say that he was smothered. It was also reported that he was molested by his killer. Mark had been washed by his killer and his nails manicured. His clothes were also washed and ironed. He was carefully placed at the dump site in the sleeping position.
so he was dead for 8 hours when they found him. And that was 4 hours
Yeah.
after he was reported missing. And all the police said was, "Oh, he's a runaway. He'll be back home soon." So if they took this seriously, he might have been found alive. Is that what you're saying?
It was 4 days later.
Days later. So like the police had 4 days to take this case seriously.
Yeah.
Or did he like die? Did he die like 8 hours before he was found? Or did he die
Yes.
8 hours after he was kidnapped?
No, 8 hours before he was found. So he was killed and then dumped.
So he was
but
alive
kept.
for four
Yeah, so he was kept
four
for 4
days.
days
He was
alive.
alive
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
honey.
So it was later admitted that the police moved Mark's body before the medical examiner arrived. His body was also taken to the
Oh.
Southfield police station instead of the morgue, and the police also removed Mark's clothing, which destroyed and contaminated any existing evidence.
Complete
Because this case
incompetence.
was
Oh my god.
Because this case was so unusual, the police started working with a forensic psychiatrist who suggested that the killer may return to the dump site, which, as we know, is quite common for killers to return to their killing site. So the police left a child-sized mannequin at the site exactly where Mark had been found. When they checked the mannequin, they would find a funeral service card from Mark's funeral at the spot where Mark had been placed. A taunt left by the killer suggesting he had attended the funeral.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Shit. Yeah. So the second victim is Jill Robinson. So on December 22nd, 1976, Carol Robinson was making dinner. Jill got into an argument with her mum because Jill refused to make biscuits with her. "Well, Jill, if you don't like being here, why don't you grab your coat and go stand out in the front yard and think about it? And when you feel like talking about it, come back in." Following the argument, Jill packed her blue bag with makeup and a blanket. She left her home in Royal Oak, Michigan, and pedaling her bicycle down Woodward Avenue. Jill was described as a sweet and precocious child, mature beyond her years. As a little girl, okay, this is really fucked up. As a little girl, she grew up with a deep-seated fear, having nightmares that a man was going to shoot her. I know it's crazy, but it feels like someone is going to shoot me," she told her mum. The fear became so persistent that her parents took her to see a psychologist. When Jill never came back inside and her mother could not find her, Carol contacted the police. But again, the police assumed that this was a runaway case, despite her bike being found behind the hobby store the night she disappeared. On December 26, Jill's body was found by a motorist on the Interstate 75, about 20 minutes away from her home. Like Mark Stebbins, it appeared that her killer had staged her. The only difference was Jill was shot in the face with a 12-gauge shotgun that removed half her head.
Oh god.
She was fully clothed with her backpack still on. Autopsy results revealed that she may have died of shock and hemorrhage rather than the wound itself. To taunt the police, Jill's body was laid neatly in the snow within the site of the Troy Police Department. She was fully dressed in her clothing that had been washed and ironed. The autopsy revealed that Jill had not been molested. Police again had mishandled this case.
70s.
70s, literally the 70s, man. Christine Millick. Christine Marie Millick, who was 10, went missing 7 days after Jill Robinson's body was found, the date being January 2nd, 1977. Christine was abducted during broad daylight while walking to the 7-Eleven store near her home. She wasn't usually allowed to cross the 12-mile road, but she had gone shopping for me earlier, so I gave in. I explained how to go and wait for the light, and I told her to hurry. She promised she would. This was a statement released by her mother. When Christine failed to come home after half an hour, Deborah called the police. On January 22nd, 1977, Christine's body was found by a postal worker on a dead-end road about 16 minutes from her home. When police got to the scene, they discovered Christine's body had been carefully placed like the other two victims. The killer had closed her eyes and crossed her arms. He then tucked her in with the snow, patting it down and leaving handprint. Like the last two victims, her clothes had been washed and ironed, and her body was washed too. It was later determined Christine had been smothered to death. There were no obvious signs of molestation, and shockingly, the autopsy showed that Christine's kidnapper had killed her less than 24 hours before she was discovered, meaning she was held captive for 20 days.
Wait, 20 days?
20 days.
Days.
Pardon?
Wait, hang on. Am I hearing this correctly? 20 days, you said?
20 days. Yep.
Oh my god.
So she was held for 20 days, killed, then dumped.
Oh.
So moving on to the last of the victims, Timothy King. Timothy King was 11, born to Barry and Marion King, and the youngest of 4. He had 2 brothers, Mark and Chris, and his sister Kathy. The family lived in Birmingham, Michigan. Timothy was described as a good kid who loved to play hockey and baseball. His favourite thing to do was zoom around the neighbourhood on his skateboard and frequent the parks where he played sports. At about 7:30 p.m. on March 16, 1977, Timothy decided he wanted to go get candy. He borrowed 30 cents from his sister as she was leaving and had told her to leave the door open for him. With a skateboard in his hand, he headed to the store on Maple Road. At about 8 p.m., Timothy left through the rear entrance of the shop that opened to a parking lot shared with the supermarket. That was the last time Timothy would be seen alive. 2 individuals reported seeing Timothy in the parking lot with a shaggy-haired man with sideburns. The man had been standing next to a blue gremlin, which is a car, just to make that clear.
Thank you. That's something else completely pictured in my head.
Yeah, when I listened to it, I was like, what? And then I saw photos.
Makes sense.
Police would eventually question every gremlin owner in the Oakland County. Timothy's family went on live TV begging for the return of Timothy. They asked for him to be treated as they would treat their own kid. They also stated that his favourite food was fried chicken. They offered a reward for his turn. On March 22nd, 1977, 2 teenagers were driving in a car and spotted the body of a child in a ditch. The body was found 300 feet south of 8 Mile Road, only 20 minutes from his home. He was posed, his skateboard was placed next to his body, and his clothes was neatly ironed and washed. The autopsy revealed Timothy had been sexually assaulted by an object, rope burns on both his wrists and ankles, and suffocated approximately 6 hours before he was found. Post-mortem report revealed that Timothy had eaten fried chicken before he was murdered. The murderer had kept him alive for 6 days and fed him his favourite meal before killing him. So on the documentary that I was watching, they interview a police member who was involved with the case at the time. And he was like, this just proves that the killer was from the area. He was watching the TV. He knew what was happening. So I'm going to go into suspects. So the first suspect was obviously the male who was driving the car. So 2 people had seen that man. So it was a white male aged between 25 and 35 with a dark complexion, shaggy hair and sideburns. So that was basically all they had. They did a sketch. But the second suspect was Archibald Edward Sloan, and he was a child molester preying on young boys in his neighbourhood. He became a person of interest after hair samples found in his 1966. Oh, I've made an error here. That's fine. So anyway, police matched hair found on the bodies of Timothy King and Mark Stevens to him. But the hair was not from Sloan himself. A witness claimed to have seen Timothy King being abducted by 2 men, one described as being in his late 20s and the other described as bearing a strong resemblance to John Wayne Gacy, who was allegedly in Michigan around the times of the killings. However, Gacy's DNA didn't match either.
Ugh.
So that was a big one. Um, so this is where the second case that I was talking about comes in. So Frank Sheldon was a wealthy businessman who owned an island called North Fox Island. In 1977, Sheldon and a teacher, Jerry Richard, teamed together to convert this island into a treat for boys called the Brother Paul's Children's Mission.
Sounds a bit
This
suspicious.
was
I'm like, oh, that sounds nice.
yes,
I'm like, hang on.
no,
Mm.
no. So there wasn't much that I could find about this. However, what I could uncover was that multiple boys were molested at this camp. They were flown there for a period of around a week to 2 weeks, and then they were flown home. There was a large amount of child pornography that was found at the campsite, and Jerry Richards was charged with child pornography. However, Frank Sheldon is still on the run. They never found him. The next suspect was Christopher Bush. So Bush first appeared on the Oakland child killers investigators radar in 77 during the interrogation of a pedophile named Gregory Green. So he was a good friend of Bush. And detectives were interviewing Green regarding pedophilia activity at the North Fox Island. Both Green and Bush would eventually face charges in the children's mission case. During his interview, Green reportedly told investigators that Bush had confessed to the killing to the murder of Mark Stebbins, and generally believed to be the OCCK's first victim. Green has impeccable similarities to the sketch of the suspect who Timothy King was seen talking to. So we'll post those photos. To verify Bush's involvement in the OCCK crimes, he was given a polygraph by Ralph Cabot. So he was a Michigan State Police examiner. Bush passed the polygraph, as did Gregory Green, and they were removed as suspects. Because back then, obviously now polygraphs don't hold up in court, but back then they were the new thing.
True, so they were used quite a lot to determine. I do know, isn't it like if you take a polygraph, psychopaths can pass it?
Yeah.
Or parents like that have lost their children feel like they will fail it because they think they have done something wrong and they didn't do enough. And like there's all these inconspicuous,
Yeah.
it's really for people that don't know what a polygraph is.
Yeah.
If they say, oh, you failed it, they'll be like, fuck, all right, yes, I did do it. That's how they get a confession. It's
pretty much. So it's not as clear as it people would like it to be. According to Barry King, who was Timothy's father, almost 2 years after he filed a suit to review the October 28 the polygraph, in 2008, a search warrant on the Bush residence and the 40th District Court gave him access to a search warrant file. The search warrant affidavit prepared by Oakland County prosecutor and signed by the Michigan State Police disclosed that 3 experienced polygraphers concluded that Bush either failed or did not pass the lie detector test. Yet the Oakland County prosecutor publicly stated that in 77, Bush passed the test. So Gregory Green was held on 75-gram bail and was given a life sentence. He died of a heart attack in his cell at the age of 45. Bush's bail was set at 75 grand, but on his booking sheet, the sum had been penciled out to $1,000, written in its place. Bush then pled guilty to 4 sex child criminal cases without spending a day in jail. The Michigan State Police reported that he was active at the North Fox Island. The report made reference to Christopher Bush having a suitcase of pornographic photographs on the North Fox Island. He was not indicted for those crimes. 1 month after Bush was released, Tim King was abducted and murdered in March 77. The Bush family owned a white Welsh Terrier. White animal hairs were reportedly found in the clothes of all 4 of the OCCK's victims.
Oh, really?
Yes. So on November 20th in 1978, Bush was found dead at age 27 in his family's mansion. There was 1 bullet hole between his eyes. Everything screamed setup and murder, not suicide. Bush shot himself in the head with a rifle, and yet he was found tightly wrapped in a blanket. There was also a lack of gunshot residue on his hands.
Oh,
There were several items that seemed staged. Ligatures were placed sloppily on the floor of what otherwise was a clean room. There were shotgun shells of the same caliber that killed Jill Robinson. And then a hand drawn picture of a screaming child was hung on the wall, and that had a striking resemblance to Mark Stebbins. Chillingly, the boy in the drawing had been captured mid scream, his face contorted in terror, and his hood was drawn up as Mark Stebbins had always been when he was sexually defiled body was found. Bush had been cleared as a suspect in the Stebbins murder case on January 28, 1977. Then, shortly after, the OCC task force was called to help process the scene, but that was ruled a suicide, and then the Oakland County and the original task force were disbanded 3 weeks after Bush's death. And author Anthony Carrick was writing a book claiming that Bush had been murdered by the OCCK perpetrators. However, Carrick suddenly died before the book was completed.
oh,
And I'm going to leave it there, but pretty much they never found the killer. And
oh.
there are so many inconsistencies. There is, it's whack. It is crazy, and in the documentary, one of the main, I'm not going to say character. What are they? One of the main people in the documentaries. He was walking home, so he was the same age as in the 70s as most of these children were that were killed, and he was saying that he was walking home and someone in a blue car pulled over, tried to grab him and said, "Get in the car," and he just ran. Um, so he was like, I could have been the next victim, but there are a lot of inconsistencies within the case, and it's quite a crazy case.
Damn. So this is to do with like police incompetence and the time where they didn't really have a lot of
Yeah,
forensic work to go on.
yeah, yeah. And the North Fox Island was only, it was very close to Michigan. I remember seeing it on the map. I would not be able to describe it. Um,
Yep.
but just because it was in a similar area, it,
Could have been where
some people
the
think it is
children might have
connected,
been
and some
held.
people think it's not connected.
Eh.
So, I mean,
Just show. Oh,
the female victims weren't molested or anything. They were strangled to death,
true.
but the boys were. And then you've obviously got the situation at the North Fox Island, where all the it was a boys' camp.
The boys. Mm,
So yeah,
sin. It's crazy to think because so when this guy was like committed suicide or was murdered, say it was a suicide, is that when
mm.
the killing stopped? Like either someone
It's
killed him.
the
Like so
last
what's the rumor? They think it
the
was the person who killed him
they
that
believe
did.
it was Bosch and Green. Well, some of the parents did, um, but there's nothing clear. No one's really sure. Well, they in the documentary goes for about 5 episodes, so it's a lot to cover.
Right. So it was like a mini series sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one family believed that it was Bosch and Green, um, and that someone on the police force was covering things up. Obviously with his bail being, from 75 grand to a grand,
Whoa.
and then not indicted for any criminal offences of child pornography.
That's true. Oh, it's so hard because you can almost see how everyone connects. It's just
Yeah.
not definite.
Yeah, but it's just not definite, which is really, really frustrating.
You need to have beyond reasonable doubt, and there's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, exactly.
oh,
And
those
yeah,
poor
the
families
yeah.
have never gotten justice.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
to
so
think
it's
that a lot of the children were treated as just runaways, and they
exactly,
could have.
yes.
Oh,
And how odd, like every child was washed and cleaned and fed. The clothes were washed and they're all placed.
Ironed and Oh my god. And someone even potentially going to a funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, messed up.
Yeah, very
That's
messed
messed
up.
up murder, Jamie. God
I
damn.
know. I know.
That hasn't been fair. Yeah, it just shows like back then children were just treated as properties,
Mhm.
you know, like
Yeah.
not as innocent beings,
Yeah,
you know, to
exactly.
protect at all costs. Oh,
It's crazy.
I need a bloody drink to that. That was
Yeah.
horrible.
You're
Well done,
welcome.
Jamie. Well
Anytime.
done. That was a good one. Oh, want to do what made us happy this week? Bring up the
Yeah.
happiness.
You go first.
You go first. Yes, you can go first.
Oh, okay. Good news is that my leg's finally healing, and TAC approved to pay for the treatment. Yeah, of the leg
Yeah,
too is what I'm
so
trying to say. So that's good. So
happy.
that's a 500, 5 grand that I get to save.
Yes, thank God.
Thank God.
Oh,
Yep.
it's so good to hear that it's like healing, you know, it's on slowly on its way to healing. And I hope
Yep.
this treatment, you know, just really pushes it along because I know how much not being able to be active is affecting you, you know, and
Yep.
oh,
It's
so
a killer.
that's
It
a
happened
very good
6 months
happy.
ago on Monday,
Oh, true.
so it's been a long time.
And it's very long time. I can't believe it's still like affecting you to this day.
Mm.
Like,
Yep. I feel you there. What about you?
well, apart from Dan Andrews saying we can see one person, which I was able to see you on, we went for a little walk together, which was
Yeah,
really
it was
nice.
really
We socially distanced, guys. Don't worry.
good.
But it was just good to finally talk to face. You know, it made me
Yeah.
so happy
Yeah.
afterwards. I apart from that, I have got I've been building a new computer. So, which is incredibly daunting. I didn't think I could ever do it. But I'm slowly getting there and I'm really proud of myself for working
I'm so
hard.
proud of you. Like that is a difficult task. And
And
also it's such a man thing.
I know.
So,
I've always wanted to do it, and that it's always like, oh, I just don't think I can. You know,
yeah.
I don't think I can do electricity or like gadgets and stuff. But I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? Do this. Men can do
It's
it. I can do it.
no, it's so good. It's really good that you do it. Like it's so challenging. So it's a good task.
So you guys might see me on a better quality cam. You know, next time might be you can see my crappy done eyebrows and stuff. But
Oh
we
my
shall
God.
see.
Ah, so yeah, that's good though. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye. Farewell. Let's say goodbye.
Do we
Good
want to
luck.
do
Stay.
the?
Okay.
Are we gonna try it?
I think you
Yep.
kind of
Okay.
have to do the thing.
We
We've done
have
it
to do the
every
thing.
episode now. All right, so on three. Are you guys ready? On three.
Yeah.
Okay.
1,
3.
2, 3.
You
You
can't
can't spell
spell
manslaughter
well
without
without laughter.
laughter.
That
I
one was
almost.
pretty good. Look, that one was pretty good.